Hi, I'm Jackie.
And I'm Seth.
And this is Never TMI.
Where we talk about real things.
And nothing is ever off limits.
Good day, everyone.
Hi. This honestly, side note, feels so good because our Evan, our younger daughter, she's like 1.5, used to sleep in the room right next. It was like an empty laundry room. We just got a washer and dryer. Praise the Lord. And those of you who know, if you know, you know, it's been a long time coming. But we moved her out of there, obviously, so she's not like in an actual laundry room sleeping, into our guest room. And it just feels like
we now
I can like breathe a little.
A side of the house.
Yes, like a space. And like Seth literally like waking up. It just felt so like tiptoey, even like we'd put her down and then come in here, and even like talking, it feels good to like have some voice freedom. Yes, right. It feels good. But hello, we're so excited. I'm excited about today's topic. I feel like we haven't really talked about it at all, and so
well, go ahead and introduce the topic, I guess.
No, go ahead. So what you're gonna say?
I was gonna say this topic is it's like a good story, I think. And it was really something that challenged us in terms of just like our faith, and it was like an emotional, mental struggle.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Especially for Jackie, but
no, yeah. And I think letting go, like I feel like we learned a lot, and so I'm super excited. It's something that I've talked to so many people about, but there's not like a place that I've talked about my VBAC experience, which, if for those of you who don't know, a VBAC stands for vaginal birth after cesarean, or like a C-section. So
it's not just vagina back. Okay.
Yeah, narrow. But a lot of people do ask. They're like, what the heck is that? Because unless you've had a C-section, I never looked into it or knew what it was either, until I was like, okay, we want a lot of kids. I don't want to have C-section after C-section. And the reason I had a C-section in the first place, it's just funny looking back, because I went through the birthing center, which like through midwives. There were no hospital anything. There was going to be no epidural. I think laughing gas was like the extent of like pain assistance, like medication and whatever. It's not even medication, but there was nothing. And that was the route that I don't even think I wanted to take that route. I think I felt like this pressure just on my own that I like put on myself. A lot of my sisters have given birth naturally at this birthing center, and so I was like, oh, that's just the route I'm going to take. And throughout that pregnancy, once we got to like, I think it was like 28 weeks, I was like, oh, she still hasn't flipped. 32 weeks, still hasn't flipped. 36 weeks, okay. I did the ECV, which I don't know. I've heard what it stands for before, but I can't think of it right now. But it's essentially where they try to like flip your baby for you, which I wish I had done a little bit more research before I did it, because apparently they're not super successful and they can be a little damaging or painful or whatever. I'm glad I did it, just because I feel like it was something I was like, this is my last ditch effort. I feel like I did everything I could. And so it was, the birthing center, they obviously were like, if this baby doesn't turn, we don't deliver breech babies. So you're going to have to get a C-section, or you can deliver a breech baby. Here are the risks and complications.
Somewhere else.
Yes, somewhere else. So at like a hospital. And they had recommended the person who has now delivered 2 of our children and is going to deliver the 3rd. Yeah.
But yeah, so and Jackie did a great job of just trying to exhaust all efforts. I think you did acupuncture
I mean, I did. I was doing handstands in the pool.
No.
Yeah. Acupuncture.
And it's funny how when you look up like wives' tales of
Oh.
how to make a baby flip, there's just so
I mean,
many
remember when you like literally were burning my
strange
toes with this like
incense?
yes.
Yeah.
Like we were desperate because I was like, how do we go from one extreme to the other? Like, how do I I want this natural so I thought this like natural like water birth experience. That was kind of what I dreamed of. And I'm sure I would have gone that route had I not had a C-section. Like that was what I was doing. So I stayed with the midwives the entire time. And then at the end, it was like, okay, this baby didn't flip. And we scheduled a C-section. And it was probably the scariest thing I have done in my life. I just didn't want to. But like, I think it was like too much fear attached to like delivering a breech baby. And so that's what we chose. That's what we landed on. So that's why I had a C-section, just to give you some backstory with Kennedy. And I would say it was fine. After that, I know a lot of people, it's very common once you have one C-section, and a lot of people choose a C-section, which is great. Like, as their first resort, like that's an option. And that just wasn't my personal preference. And so after having a C-section with Kennedy, I was like, okay, I didn't love that. Like, I don't want to do that again. It wasn't a pleasant experience. I would say like the healing of it, I was just like, I kind of compared like my sister's healing to what I couldn't pick anything up. Every cough, every sneeze, like taking care of the incision, and like it got infected and whatever. So I just was like, I don't know if I want to do this again. And also, we want a decent amount of kids. So people ask all the time, and at first we kind of said like 4 to 6, and I think right now, at least like today, if you were to ask us, we're like, okay, I think 5 is kind of what we've somewhat landed on. And then if we have another, then it would be like, oh, why not? But it's not like in the plan right now. But we'll never say never. So yeah, I was like, I want a decent amount of kids too. And that's obviously not, C-section after C-section is not conducive for like a woman's body. If you want a lot of kids, and sometimes they will literally like it's physically not a good idea. So they'll like tie off your tubes. And that's like a paper that you literally sign before you get a C-section. Like if they see fit for this to not happen again, because like it's dangerous, then they'll do that. So all those fears were running through my head. And so I just knew, I was like, okay, I want to have a VBAC. That's the route I want to take. The birthing center, unfortunately, doesn't do that either. So I some do, but the one that I know and love doesn't. And so, and I think I was comfortable with the hospital scene after having the C-section. I was like, whatever, I'm fine. I would like an epidural. Obviously with the C-section, you get like the spinal tap, epidural, all that kind of stuff. So after that, I was just like, what, at this point, it's totally fine. So I knew I wanted to do a VBAC. So I think I really...
But can I just say...
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's when, the whole journey really started, was kind of at that... Well, obviously, Kennedy's whole thing was its own journey. But then, a lot of times they said that there's reasons that the baby doesn't flip. Like maybe your body, for some reason or another can't deliver, vaginally, so it doesn't flip as a, whatever. And so I think that's really when it started, knowing that we wanted more kids, knowing, Lord willing, there's a baby number 2. And like, that's really when that whole second process started. Yeah. And it wasn't like an immediate thing. We waited a year and a half before.
Yeah, I think Kennedy was 16 months before we were like, okay, let's start trying.
Right. But really then it's like, okay, we could try this again, and this could literally happen again.
Yeah.
And so
that was my biggest fear.
Right.
Sorry, go ahead.
No,
that was it. Okay.
That was the point.
No, yeah, that absolutely. Like that was a big concern because there was no reason. So not usually, but sometimes they're like, sometimes the baby doesn't flip because of so and so. After my C-section, the doctor was essentially like, we didn't see any reason as to why she didn't flip. So hopefully the next baby flips. And
well, actually, and I forgot about this. Kennedy had her cord wrapped around her neck. And so
didn't Evan have something with her cord too?
Evan had a knot in her cord.
And they were shocked because
and they said
it was pretty tight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very crazy. So maybe that had something to do with it, but they, they do say like sometimes the cord can get in the way. Yeah. So it's wrapped around her neck.
And that's just I mean, when you think about pregnancy in general, it's like, I think that's one of the, I'm not trying to jump the gun here, but
no, yeah.
When I think about those things, it's just, a birth is such a miracle.
And all of it. Pregnancy.
Yeah. But every birth is so unique and different. And so it's just, I can't help but just be so thankful that, like, for the 2 kids that we've already had, like that it happened the way that it happened the way that it did, because that's where you just have to trust that God is sovereign, and it's like, okay, maybe there is a reason. And that's kind of what we came to. That's the conclusion we came to with Kennedy.
Oh, Kennedy, yeah.
Was like, okay, like, we've done everything that we can, and this still hasn't flipped. So we're just going to trust that this is the best thing for Kennedy.
Absolutely.
And it turned out that was. And so that, I think, kind of goes into Evan.
Yeah.
We basically kind of get to the same situation. Evan did flip, though. Mm-hmm. And so, we're praying, like, our prayer was essentially, Lord, we would really like to have a VBAC, a successful VBAC, because we want to have more than a few kids. And, that was
yeah,
really
we kind of like laid out our reasoning. Yeah.
And it was like, and I think that's where we just had to hold it with an open hand to say, like, Lord, this is what we would like, but not our will, but your will be done. And I don't know. I feel like that's really where God met us in that place of faith. But that's, I mean,
and
that's
also we had to come to I think the C-section, that whole experience. And then, not to mention, this is a whole other story, but my niece, so my sister and I were a week apart, gave birth a week apart, and she had a stillbirth. And she was just a beautiful baby girl. And I will say, so like in the moment, of course, it's like, man, why is this happening to me? Then that happens. And I'm like, okay, number one, Lord, what are you doing? Like it was just such a stressful, I'm not in control, time, And then when my sister lost her baby, that was like, oh, it's really not up to us. Like we can do it all. We can fast, we can pray, we can scream. Like there were, I remember Seth, like hearing Seth in like the other room, all the guys are praying. Everyone's just desperate like that. I think if I look back in a time in my life, the definition, like desperation, like that was it that day. So I think after all of that whole experience, and again, I'll leave I'll leave that separate. But it was like such a reminder heading into Evan, like, oh, I want a VBAC, but it felt so like it was like
out of your control.
Yeah. I was like, whatever is supposed to happen, or not even whatever's supposed to happen, whatever is going to happen is going to happen. So I had a kind of like a discouraging mindset going into it, but I was willing to do whatever I needed to do at the same time. So I think our mindset, just even with the C-section, was kind of shifted, because that just showed us like it really is not in our control. And like that was a scary feeling. So it was like somewhat of a stressful pregnancy, I would say, because it consumed my mind. And then it was like every step, which it already consumes your mind. It's like you get pregnant and then you're like, Lord, I hope this baby sticks. I hope everything goes well. I hope that the baby's healthy. I hope that I can keep this baby. I hope, and then it's like, okay, I hope this baby flips. I hope it's growing right. It's like the whole, every day you're just like, am I doing the best by this baby? So it's already stressful, but I was like, man, I really, like, you're thinking like 10 years down the line. And I'm like, I really don't want another C-section. And so once she had flipped, once I heard that she had flipped, obviously you're like, okay, I hope she stays flipped. But that was such a blessing because Kennedy, to my knowledge, had never flipped once. Right. So that was such a good feeling. And it was like, okay, step one, like, or step 30, you know, but it was just like, I'm like, we've made it here and she's flipped. We're good. This is great. Like, let's keep this going. Let's hope she doesn't turn around. All that kind of stuff. So that was such a relief, just to know that she could. And I would say from then on, it just was like, it, you know, I was doing everything I could to, like, I would say researching took over my life. And then even looking into like the hospital system and like this period of time, like near the end of my pregnancy with Evan, was probably the time that I had done the most research in my life on a topic. And all of it consumed like my mind, my emotional state. It was stressful, but it was also super informative because I was like, okay, I need to know how to go into this prepared, and how can I make sure that this happens? And then obviously, like, I'm a big fan of both, like, I don't know how to say it, but we love like the birthing center, the natural route, the holistic, whatever. It's kind of like how we approach our lives, I would say. We also are very open to like if the kids have a fever, I have no problem giving them Motrin. I'll try other things. Like we also have no problem putting like breast milk or garlic oil in their ears. So like I would say we're pretty fine with and kind of balance our lives with like both, if that makes sense. We don't lean one way or the other. And so, but I'm very aware of like the healthcare system, of hospitals, of the business. Highly recommend The Business of Being Born if you haven't watched that movie, documentary. It is a jaded system. It can also be wonderful, but I was aware of all of that. So I was like, how do I prepare myself best? Advocate for myself. I was prepared. I was ready to be guns blazing in that hospital. I had conversations with Seth. Like we talked about like, if they ask this is how we respond. If in Seth, I was so thankful because he was like, anything I needed, he was like ready to go to bat. He was very intentional with like the questions he would ask our OB, like whom we love. But I think we both were like on guard, and I think we were like, we'll do whatever it takes to make this happen, you know?
Yeah, that was definitely a huge lesson learned because again, going from essentially two different systems, one more the natural path, like what do you call them, midwives?
Yes.
That's like, we're trying to do everything natural. Mm-hmm. And then you go to the hospital where it's very regimented, very calculated, like, yeah. And
your choice is like, they have their system and you're working within it essentially.
Right. But then also, like learning that you can then bring in your requests and you can like legally, they have to honor some
like you can refuse
and you can refuse certain things. So like that was something, even if we, you know, and it sounds like I don't know that we will, even if we never go back to the midwives, like knowing that going into, you know, just a regular hospital experience, I think is a great knowledge to have for anyone who might, might be doing that in the future. Yeah. Just know, like, kind of like knowing your rights, knowing what you can fight for, knowing, you know, because again, and I know that there's a reason for the system. Yeah. But sometimes the system might not always be looking out for your best interest.
Yeah.
I guess to say it politely. And so just like knowing, okay, what's really the healthiest thing for the baby?
Yeah.
And
what do I want? What's going to make me feel the most comfortable?
I also think too, though, building a great relationship with your OB.
Totally.
So like we
have a wonderful relationship.
Like literally our visits are literally just like catch up chat sessions. Like,
talk, family, life.
The appointment is probably 2 minutes of like measuring, getting the heartbeat, and we're done. And then we'll chat for another 20 minutes. And so he's really
like a friend. Like he literally is like it feels like he's like a family friend or something.
Yeah. So like, and I think that also just speaks to any relationship in general. Like, just you gotta feel good about it too. Yeah, and just like, you know, building a relationship with them that builds trust. Yeah. And I also feel like because we've done that, and not to say that he wouldn't otherwise, but he's very transparent with us about everything. And so, and we know that he's advocating for us. So like,
which is the most important part. Like I don't care if I'm 36 weeks, I'm leaving if I do not feel supported, if I don't feel at peace or comfortable with my provider, with my OB. Like it is so important to know. Cause like I knew he does C-sections every other day. You know what I mean? It's like he's very open to all of it. It's fine. He does whatever.
Shout out to Dr. Pearson.
Right. Yes.
If you ever listen
the best. But he was never like, well, you should probably do this. Again, very honest, very open. He's not going to like fluff us up and be like, absolutely, you have 100% chance of success. Yes. He's very like love his personality because it is very like honest and but also he's like, I'm going to do everything to make sure you get the birth that you want, and that is like music to my ears. So very good point. Like trust your provider and don't be afraid to like look around. You know, it's like this is your birth, your experience, your birth. You want it to be a positive one, and they play such a big vital role. So anyways, yes, I also want to give you some hope. I was petrified. I was so scared going into the whole situation. I had never had a vaginal birth. I had never like done any of that. I was like, I don't even know what a contraction feels like. Like I have no idea. And I don't want to like ruffle feathers. I will be confrontational if I have to, but it is literally my worst nightmare. I do not like it. Like I have a very bold personality, but I can be such a people pleaser, and it scared the heck out of me thinking about being like that person or that girl on the floor who was just like refusing everything and questioning everything. Cause it's like, at the end of the day, they're professionals. I don't want to like, I don't want to be like annoying to them either. So not my personality to just be like, actually, we're not comfortable with that. No, you know, like I'm totally the opposite. I'm like, okay, well, I didn't love that, but do whatever you need to do. So I was scared like heading into it, and I didn't want to like cause any problems. And then I also didn't want the experience to be ruined because I was fighting so hard for the things that I really wanted. And it was kind of like annoying to them. But just to comfort you, it's so like my experience was the best experience, and I'll get into like the actual birth in a second, but like it was the most beautiful, light. I didn't have to advocate for myself once. I don't think there was one time that I was like, no, I don't want to do that. And again, thankfully they were already like on board with the things that we kind of wanted to do. It was like, oh, we want to do the delayed cord clamping. We want Seth to cut the whatever, like all these random, I want to do, you know, skin to skin, like right away. Which is so funny because I look back and I'm like, you can actually give her a bath next time like that. It's like, that's also not my personality. Like I look back on the video and I'm like, was I okay? Like it's just, birth is such a shocking experience, and I just was not what I expected to be. But they like later on me and I was like, ooh, okay. Like it was just like a funny, I don't know, hormones took over, and I was like, like I didn't like kiss her or anything. I was just like, oh, you've got all this stuff on you. Like it was just funny. But anyway, so yeah, like be encouraged that you don't have to like, I would say be prepared and research, and you don't need to go crazy like I did, but like do your due diligence and research on the topic if you are wanting to have a VBAC or just birth in general. But at the same time, you don't need to go into it with like fear, thinking that, man, every hospital is jaded and the healthcare system, they're only looking out for themselves. Like my nurses were angels. Everything was just amazing. Everything was amazing. And I couldn't have asked for a better experience. So anyway,
to that point, go ahead. Though, too, I definitely think advocating for yourself before the moment happens is like
laying it out.
Again, it's kind of like you're building this relationship with your OB, and then your OB has relationships with the nurses, and so there is somewhat of a trickle down effect. And so like, and I hope this is encouraging to anyone who is ever thinking about doing a VBAC or even any birth experience really, but especially VBAC, because had we not advocated for a VBAC, we probably
would have ended up in a C-section. It probably would have
been highly recommended to do a C-section. Yeah. Like a lot of people, there are some doctors who refuse to do VBACs, and
which is crazy. So, but to this day,
from a doctor's perspective, a lot of it is statistics. So like
risk,
and if you have one VBAC, statistics are higher that it's unfavorable. Two VBACs, two births
favorable,
is even less favorable. So it's, and a lot of places won't even, that would be super rare to find someone to say like, oh, you've had 2 C-sections, we wouldn't even try for a VBAC.
Yeah.
Like, and so but really knowing what you want, knowing and really
being
advocating for yourself, being confident in that, and then trying to build the relationship to have, so that they can work with you and you can work with them to have the birth that you want. I think that's really important.
Absolutely. Like we did lay it out and say, like I made it very clear, this is what I want. I do not want another C-section under any circumstance unless the baby is at extreme risk. That we were so passionate about that, and I asked many questions. He was behind me on all of it. So I think it is important, because by the time we got to hospital, it was like he had already discussed with the nurses. He had already talked to people on the floor. It was like,
it's in the notes.
It was all, it's in the notes. Yeah. It's like, you're here for a VBAC. And that felt really good. It didn't feel like, oh my gosh, it's a VBAC. Like, okay, this is crazy. It felt special because they were like,
it was special.
They were, yeah, because they were kind of advocating for it too.
This doesn't always happen. It's like a somewhat different experience than just the average birth.
Because so a lot of people do want another C-section. They're like, I already had one. Let's do it again or whatever. So they seemed like kind of like, all right, let's do this, and that was really cool. But so when it comes to the actual like birth, I went almost 42 weeks. Like I did not go early under any circumstance. I tried to induce in every single way that you can possibly think of. Yes, I did castor oil. I did clary sage. I did the massages. I did the baths with the oils and the everything. Like I did anything. You looked the dates, raspberry leaf tea. I looked it all up, and it just like was doing nothing. There would be times I had to pee in the middle of the night, and I would do squats like on the bed on the edge of the bed, just because I'm like, okay, hopefully my water breaks this second. So I was just, I don't know why. I think I was, again, just like a little stressed. This time around, I'm just going to let whatever needs to happen. But I was just like, man, this is like, oh no. Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting such a big piece. What? Do you no, you don't know?
What piece?
I just totally forgot that I was on like a time crunch kind of, because essentially our OB was like, you don't want to get too far out of like, you don't want to get to like 43 weeks pregnant. Because yes, the chances of like C-section will be higher. And I don't know. So that kind of stressed me out a little bit, because he's like, I don't even think they do it past 42 weeks, like a VBAC. So he was like, you can schedule an induction.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, you can schedule an induction, because after 42 weeks, like I don't even think the hospital does it, like a VBAC at that, whatever. And there's a bunch of different reasons why, and whether or not it, like, I understand it or not. That was the information given to me at the time. So I was just like, all I know is that we got to get this baby out. So that's why I was so like aggressively trying. And I was scheduled for an induction. At the end of the day, we were like, okay, let's just induce. And again, even induction, that ups your risk or your chances for a C-section. And he told us that too. It's like you kind of want to go naturally, because if you induce, you do the Pitocin, you do it like your body, whatever. And that I understood, because that's what I'd researched. Like for VBAC, they're like, you kind of want to go naturally, but induction is fine. I just, for this birth, for this first time being a VBAC, I was like, I just want whatever. I want my water break. I want whatever. So we get to the induction day, which I think was like literally 41 and 5, like 41 weeks and 5 days.
6.
It was? Wow.
Pretty sure.
41 weeks and 6 days. I was like, okay. So we went in, and I actually didn't even remember this, but I read this recently, because I had like written it down. I think it was like an Instagram story that I posted. And I had completely forgotten. But I went in 41 weeks, 6 days. They were going to start with the balloon catheter. So it's like a balloon that they put in your uterus essentially to like expand it. And I wanted to get the epidural immediately. I hated being checked. I hated all of that. I genuinely just don't like being in pain like that. Discomfort, all of that, especially in like tender places. Like that's why I hate teeth. It's like my mouth, like down there, it's all tender and just like should not be messed with. So I get really queasy and like nauseated with that kind of stuff. So I was like, I don't want to feel anything. So I went in and I got the epidural right away, because this was induction day. And they were going to do Pitocin, do the balloon catheter, and they didn't even end up having to do that. So they gave me the epidural. That, like, as I look back, that was like the worst part of the day, because it was so painful. And I don't know if this guy had ever done one before, maybe, but it was just like, everyone knew like, oh, this is not going how it's supposed to be going. And he'd be like, okay, can you feel this? And I'm like, 100%. And it was just so painful. I think it took like 15 minutes, or maybe that's just my
it took a while.
Memory, but it took a while. And, but anyway, got the epidural, and then they broke my water, or no, they checked me, and they were like, oh, you're already like 3, like out of 3, or like something like that, which had never happened. I was at a 0 zip anytime I got checked. Even at like 41 weeks, like it was like, oh, you're still like nothing, or it was like maybe a 1. So that was not promising, but I know that can change in, an hour. So I was very hopeful, but I got in there and they were like, oh, we don't even need to do the Pitocin. Like, so they broke my bag of water after they checked me, because they're like, let's just, which is a natural form of induction. They broke my water, which I was okay with because I had an epidural. So I was like, that's fine. Do what you need to do. And that got things going, and I was contracting on my own, and I was like progressing without Pitocin, which was wonderful. So I don't know if they ever ended up giving me Pitocin.
I think they did.
They did in the end, maybe.
Yeah, because I think from the 3, you didn't progress
super far.
I think they broke your bag when it was more like 0, and then you progressed to a 3, and then plateaued at a 3, and then I think they did a small dose of Pitocin.
Oh,
and I
okay.
remember we fell asleep for probably like 3 or 4 hours,
and then I woke up.
You woke up literally like at a 10.
Yes, because she came in to check me, and how long? It was like from the time we literally got there to the time I was at a 10, probably like 7 hours, right?
Yeah,
or longer.
It
maybe
didn't
longer.
seem like super.
It wasn't like forever. It was not one of those 24-hour births, which was crazy because I was nervous because I was like, okay, if, or I wasn't nervous. I was just prepared for it to be a long first vaginal birth like that. They're usually long, whatever. But I was actually shocked at how quick and how, they did do a little Pitocin. It's funny how little I remember, but in of that part. But yes, woke up. She came in to check me, so I think she actually woke me up. Came in to check me and was like, "Oh, you're ready." Like, I literally feel the head; it's right there, and it was crazy. I swear, like, if you have an epidural, I did not feel any. I felt pressure. That's it. So like, I did not feel an ounce of pain, not one, and it was not like, no part of it. It was like a very calm, somber experience. I was so. It was so special having Seth there, just like to sit and like be with and talk to but we were kind of quiet. Like, it wasn't like this crazy loud, like, movie experience, which is kind of what I was expecting. So she was like, "Oh, you're ready to push." And I essentially wanted to wait. So this is what I tell people that I think is the most important piece of like a successful VBAC, in my opinion, from my research and just from my experience personally. The best thing that I did, that I was 100% like prepared to do no matter what. Sometimes you can be dilated to a 10, but your body is like not ready to push. There's like other things that go into, like, sometimes they're like, "Great, you're at a 10, so let's push." But I was like, if it's okay, I want to wait. I want to wait to push until I feel the urge, till I feel ready to push. And I genuinely don't know what feeling I was looking for, but I just knew I'll know when I'm ready to push. Dr. Pierce was not at the hospital yet. So he was like notified, obviously, like, I'm at a 10. I forget what he was doing or where he was, but he was like, "I'll be here."
Like 4 a.m, 5.
Yeah.
So he wasn't at the hospital yet.
For hours. So he's like, I think he ended up going there like 7 or something. So it sounds insane, but I was literally at a 10 for hours. But I felt 100% fine. So they were like, they just kept switching me like from side to side, making sure everything was good, that her heart rate was stable. And I was just waiting. Like, I could have pushed, but the reason I wanted to wait is because, number one, again, I don't want a C-section. In my mind, that was the goal. So I'm like, I don't want to be pushing for hours, and then 2 hours pass, and then they whisk me away and they're like, "We're just going to do a C-section." I didn't want that. I also was not concerned, but I just tearing, like, I don't know. I just wanted to tear as little as possible, if not at all. And so I was like, okay, I just want to wait until my body feels it. And it was insane and perfect timing, because by the time Dr. Pierce had gotten there, and I've been at a 10 for a long time, I couldn't even, like, I was like, oh, I literally feel the biggest urge, and it feels like you need to poop. big time. It feels like you have the biggest poop or pressure, even like fart. I was scared I was going to let out like the biggest fart of my life, like in his face. I was just like, this pressure is insane. And it's crazy because I did not even have to push. My body was pushing for me. It was like, that was the point. And that was that feeling I was looking for, was like, oh, I feel pressure. And they would come in and ask every now and then, like while I was waiting, they're like, do you feel it yet? And I was like, a little bit, but like, I want to wait. Like I not yet. And so by the time he got there, I was like, okay, perfect timing. I think while he was on his way, there was like a conversation of like, I think I need to push now. So like whether he's here or not, I'm good. I just need to push. So I got that feeling I was looking for, which was the best. It just was like, just reassuring. It's like your body's going to do what it's supposed to do. And that was a cool feeling. And the other thing I did was when I finally started to push, I pushed with contractions only. So I waited in between for a contraction. I didn't just push again. I didn't do that. Sometimes it was like a minute or two, and we were just laying there silently waiting for a contraction, in order for me to push. And cause that way you have your body working for you too. Like it's working with you. And I wasn't just like giving it like, of course the pushing was like, it took effort, but again, obviously I had an epidural, so it wasn't painful. It was just like, all right, you got to push. I had let him know that I didn't want to tear, obviously, like it's inevitable sometimes. And I did tear a little bit. But it wasn't terrible. And he was able, I think because I had an epidural, I was calm, and I was able to he was able to kind of direct and be like, okay, stop there. Like, you don't want to like bust this baby out, and tear all over the place. So like, he knew that was, again, I had voiced that many times, and he knew that was like a concern of mine. Just because that's just the way that I am. So it was really helpful because he was able to be like, okay, stop there. Like, it wasn't like uncontrollable. So pushing, I think I pushed 3 or 4 times. I think I pushed like 3 or 4 times. It was not a lot. It was very quick. Mm-hmm. And the baby, she was just right there. So it was just like, let's get her out. Pushed her in contractions. She came out. And I tore a little bit. Obviously didn't feel anything. So they stitched me up, and they just laid her on me. And it was just like, I couldn't believe that we got the VBAC. It was just like, that just happened, and I'm done, and we did it, and I'm not pregnant anymore, and we have our baby, and she's healthy. And it was just like such a beautiful experience. Everyone was so kind, so encouraging. I think people like, even just like afterwards were like, you did it. Like, we did it. Like, it was just a really exciting feeling. I had my sister there, my sister Jill. I think at the time you could only have like 2 people because of COVID, right?
COVID.
Yeah. So you could only have 2 people. So I had my sister who was taking pictures. Like, we both are like, no matter what, non-negotiable at each other's births, because I take pictures of her birth, she takes pictures of mine. So it was really nice to have like video and pictures. And then Seth, obviously, I think this time I'm like, anyone can come. We haven't really talked about it, but I feel like all of us try to be at each other's births. Like, in my family, at least, like, we're all, whoever can show up, we just kind of do. And it's funny. And even like my younger sister's the last one who had a baby, and like my dad was in the room. It's just funny. But he's obviously not like seeing anything, and he looks wildly uncomfortable. But I think that's kind of like what we'll do. But at the time we could just have 2 people. So that's who was in there. And it was just like a very intimate, special, calm. I mean, I was like laughing sometimes because I felt like I was going to fart. So I was like, I'm so sorry if I fart in your face. Like, I was just in such a good mental state. And I'll say the last thing was before we even went to the hospital. I think it was the night before, right? When we sat in our room and we just kind of like gave it to the Lord. Do you remember that?
Yeah, it was the night before.
I think it was the night before. That was a big piece of my mindset, I think. My mindset shift. I think I just literally, we sat together, we prayed, we asked the Lord, knowing, like he already knew, like he knew, he knows the desires of our hearts. He knew we wanted a VBAC. He knew exactly what we wanted. But we were just like, not even asking for it again. We just more so were like, Lord, we're giving this to you. And I just like gave my fears, expressed my fears, but it was like, okay, ultimately we just want a healthy baby. You know what's best for us. If I end up having another C-section, so be it. If that's what ends up happening, then okay. And I think we both just gave up our like fear and stress and worry and traded it for like peace and just trust. Like we were just like, okay, we trust you, and whatever's supposed to happen is gonna happen. It isn't in my control. So just give us the strength to like trust you and you know, help us to do what we like, do our part, and just literally give the rest to you. And so I feel like we both went into it as peaceful as we could have. And I will to this day, it is like one of the biggest. It was funny because I feel like it shocked people afterwards. I was like, I got a VBAC. It was successful. It was wonderful. And I think I mentioned saying like I didn't deserve one. So I was just so humbled and thankful, and like I felt so like it was like such a gift. It felt like a gift that I did not deserve. And I think having the mindset of even before birth, it's like I don't deserve anything. I don't like I'm not a victim. I don't, you know, nothing in this life is like, I'm not entitled to any of it. Like just because I want a VBAC, that doesn't mean I'm going to have one. Not that I don't deserve it. I mean, not that I don't know. I'm not saying like I'm unworthy of one, but I'm not entitled to one either. And so I think having that mindset, it's like, I will either get this VBAC and it will be only the Lord's grace, or I won't get this VBAC and I just can deal with that and work through that. But I'm not going to be mad at God because I didn't get a VBAC. So I think that was both of our mindsets. And I think afterwards, I think it made it that much more beautiful, because I was like, I was so humbled and I was so thankful and blown away by not just the fact that I got a VBAC, but the experience as a whole was so positive. And we were just like, wow. I know I was just floored, and I was so just thankful. So that was kind of, and again, like I said, to this day, I'm still like, man, if this birth can go half as well as that one did, I would love that. Like it was a wonderful experience. I did not have to go crazy, go to bat for myself. I wasn't like petrified and whatever. It was like such a peaceful, blissful birth. And I just want to encourage anyone who is considering a VBAC or birth, like giving birth. If you're scared to give birth, trust me, I get it. Or if you're someone who has to have a C-section and you don't want a C-section, like I just want to encourage you that it can be a beautiful experience no matter what, regardless of, you know, and also that your birth is your birth. Sometimes they're traumatic and scary and terrible, and sometimes they're wonderful and happy to look back on. But either way, the health of that baby is more important, and it's a moment in time that will pass no matter what. So as thankful as I am, it's not like every single day I'm like, my body feels great. My body feels back to before, well, not, currently I'm pregnant, but it's like birth is birth, and it's a wrinkle in time, and you can do it. So yeah, that was the experience, and that was kind of like our mindset and just mentally where we were at. And it's something that, even looking ahead to this birth coming up in 2.5 months, which is insane, less than, I'm just hopeful. Like, I'm hopeful, and the last experience kind of eases my fears heading into this one. I know I'm not in control of this birth either, but I am like, okay, hopefully it'll be another wonderful experience. But yeah, that's it.
I think I'm reminded of the verse that says, without faith, it's impossible to please God. And I feel like so many times we think of faith as like, oh, I've got to go out and just believe for something so big.
Yeah.
But like, I think faith is also trusting in God and having the faith that even if your plan doesn't work out, that you trust him, that he's a bigger, better God who knows what's best and he's sovereign. And so like, I don't know, that would be my parting word. Because it really is, when we look back on it and talk about it, it's such a faith journey.
And we grew so much.
Journey.
Yeah.
But we did, I feel like we really grew in faith and our understanding of God, and even like how God works and who he is. And so that would just be, I guess my last thought is like, faith doesn't always have to be like, I'm getting what I want, what I think I want, because sometimes what we think we want isn't what is best for us or what is the right thing for us.
And he's sovereign.
That's God's sovereignty protecting us from.
Like, he's not punishing. I feel like I went from feeling like, oh, this C-section was a punishment. I didn't have enough faith and I didn't do enough, to thinking and realizing like, no, he's not punishing me for anything. This is the way, this is life. Like, we live in this world, these are the cards I've been dealt. Like, he doesn't favor this person who got to have their dream birth over me. You know what I mean? And, so I feel like we kind of shifted mindsets so many times throughout both of these processes, but we are very thankful if you've made it this far, that you've listened.
Thank you guys. We really appreciate you, podcast fam.
Yes, and if you have any questions, please DM me, send them my way.
Any topics you guys want us to touch on, we would love to hear that as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you all.
Yes, we love you guys. We're thankful for you. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, night, middle of the night, whenever you listen to this. But thank you so much for tuning in. We appreciate all of you.
Again, I'm Seth.
And I'm Jackie.
This is Never TMI, and we are signing off.
Peace out. You want to say bye, Kennedy?
Bye.